Tennessee Postgame Mini-Pod, a big winner over Virginia. Final score 49-13 here on the season opener in Nashville. I'm Eric Kane with Austin Price and Matt Ray. Matt, Austin and I were kind of talking about the 2-minute drill. It was business as usual. Tennessee receives the opening kickoff, marches straight down the field, scores a touchdown, and then not a whole lot going on offensively, but finishes the first half strong. Elite defense in the first half. Overall, a good day. It turns out to be a blowout.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think when you're breaking in a new football team, you're going to face a little bit of adversity early. Tennessee hit a little bit of a slump after that opening drive, and, it wasn't business as usual for just a few possessions, but they finished the first half strong. The defense had a little bit of a coming out party, and if you don't believe that Josh Heupel trusts this defense, he went for it on 4th and 1 from the 29-yard line. So they didn't get it, and their backs were against the wall, and they got off the field, and Virginia ultimately missed the field goal. So that should tell you a little bit about how Josh Heupel feels about his defense heading into 2023.
Yeah, we'll talk defense here in a moment, Austin, but I mean, you run for 290 yards, you score 5 touchdowns. Jalen Wright averages nearly 10 yards a pop. Dylan Sampson scores 4 touchdowns. Jabari Small even had a good day. Again, Virginia is not going to be anywhere close to the level of competition you're going to see in conference play. It was a good day running the football.
Yeah, you did what you needed to do. Joe was 70%. Completion percentage, was he perfect? No. But I thought he was efficient. In what he did. He's got to be better next week. That's the biggest growth.
Yeah.
You want to see from week 1 to week 2. Coach Heupel talked about it in the post game. We ran it great. Our offensive skill guys, being the receivers, they were not in a flow. They were out of rhythm. Next week at home opener, you hope to see them in rhythm. And I would imagine that's a point of emphasis early next week, is let's get into rhythm. Like we were not in rhythm at Nissan Stadium on this Saturday, and who knows why. But again, I said this going in, no matter what happens today, it's not a finished product. You can't judge them. I saw the knee-jerk reactions on the board, and I understand. People have the PTSD of the overthrow Joe from 2 years ago, but he was not that bad. There were some throws that he made today he couldn't have processed and made 2 years ago. I thought that he did, solid. Got to see growth, though, heading into next week. You hope that he's a little more accurate. Not that he was bad; he was 70%, but there was a couple of throws I think that he'd love to have back. And so, for my liking, a nice start. They did it with the ground game. Next week, though, you hope to see a little more stability through the air, and if that's the case, then you feel a little bit better. No matter how Florida played Thursday night, you feel a little better going to the Swamp, a place you've not won since 2003. I was in college. You boys were pups. You really need to kind of just continue to build next week on both sides of the ball, really.
Yeah, you're talking about being out of sync. It was play number 1 of the 3rd drive, Matt, and it was Ramel Keaton. Just had a drop, and 2 years ago, that's a throw that sails over his head. And it was a beautifully thrown ball. Mel Keaton's a good receiver, just drops that one, right? Later on in the first half, I think Joe, threw high to Brew McCoy off his hands and everything. So those are some of the throws you're talking about that you wish to come back. One of those drives in the second half that you scored, where Mel Keaton actually came back, made a great adjustment on it, on a ball that was a little underthrown from Joe. So overall, and then of course you kind of padded the stats. It's some nice, easy throws in the second half, but. Overall wasn't bad at all, but as Austin pointed out, Matt, just a lot of room to grow if you're Joe Milton.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw what we've heard about all offseason. He's taken a step in the decision-making process. Yeah. Now you have to be more accurate with the football. When you get into SEC play, those throws that you want back are going to be the difference in the football games. And I think Joe knows that. We'll see where he goes from week 1 to week 2. One thing that stood out to me about Joe today, and something that we've got questions on the board throughout the offseason, is how will Tennessee use Joe Milton to run? I thought he was pretty efficient with his legs at times.
I did too.
He didn't try to force too much. He was a willing runner. Extended a few plays, made one really nice throw to Ramel Keaton, kind of off schedule. And I think that's what he's got to do. I think that's when Joe's at his most confident. But overall, I thought the Joe from 2 years ago, when you talk about overthrow Joe, the cells over his head, I thought he bounced back today throughout the course of the game. He's got to bounce back next week because he knows he's got to be better. But yeah, overall, not a bad day for Joe Milton. Just some things to go work on from week 1 to week 2.
Last thing offensively, then we'll talk some defense. I was talking with Brent, after the game, and he pointed out a couple of things that he's intrigued to go back and look at film and kind of watch that. And you miss so much in real time. So we'll all see some other things when we go back and look at it. But the offensive line, they were rotating at 4 positions. It looked like Dane Davis snapped the football a lot along with Ollie Lane. You had a rotation at left guard. Andre Carrick looked to get that first, and Jackson Lampley, and so on and so forth. Gerald Mincy played both tackle spots. It was a blowout win. Did you see anything that kind of stood out from the offensive line early on in this one, Austin?
The biggest thing I can say is look at the Virginia side. They rolled it back there to Musket most of the game.
Yeah.
And snaps were good. I thought Dean Davis was solid, and his performance. I thought Ollie Lane was solid. I still think left guard's a bit of a issue, but I do think the scheme
helps.
It
does.
helps.
I'll talk to Ramon Foster about that.
I think the scheme helps a ton when you're not as good up front. So I just don't think you're going to truly know until you get to the swamp. You won't know next week. So I just think right now you're kind of in wait and see mode. To me, that I love to stock up, stock down, previewing kind of where we'll be with our stocks this week. But
the entire game
stock stagnant, I think, is going to be the O-line until they get to Florida, and we'll see what happens.
I agree with that. Now the fun part, defense. And offense is fun too, but boy, defense. 4 sacks again. I think that's where they ended in the game. 4 sacks, all on third downs. James Pierce 2, Tyler Barron had 2. They were blowing some stuff up. Austin, you and I talked about Omar Normala getting back there a couple times, Amari Thomas getting back there a couple times. It was fun to watch. A really good day defensively, Matt. And again, the front set the tone, man. When you're getting guys back there and getting home in critical downs, it can really kind of spark a lot going on out there. And I think that was the case today.
Yeah, absolutely. 4 sacks, 11 tackles for losses to Virginia's 1 tackle for loss. That's a tone setter right there. But James Pierce, man, what a first game of 2023 for him. He's been a talking point all offseason. Can he make that step? He certainly appeared that he's going to be able to. We had a chance to talk to him after in post game, and I'm not going to say much, but Coach called it up, dialed it up, and I went and made it happen, and he certainly did. The right tackle there for Virginia was unable to get his hands on him a few times, and it resulted.
Well, one he went inside, the other one went
just absolutely speed rushed him and beat him. Yeah, just went and got him. But overall, man, the front 7 was lights out throughout this game.
Middle layer, Keenan Peely, especially in the first half, all over the place. Aaron Beasley had a couple nice licks. One thing we did notice, and again, it's game 1, it's week 1. None of this means it's a finished product. Elijah Herring got a lot of run before Aaron Carter did. Aaron Carter really didn't see time defensively until the blowout.
Because Carter replaces Aaron Beasley, and Beasley stayed on the field, whereas Elijah Herring replaced Keenan Peely, and those two, it's as simple as that at linebacker.
But when push comes to shove, say in Alabama, those need to be interchangeable, right? They need to be.
Yeah, sure,
Okay.
but I ultimately don't think they had that. I think that's as simple as that. They were leaving Beasley on the field. Had Beasley come off, I think it would have been Arion Carter in the game.
I got you. That makes sense. But just like the safeties, you want those to be interchangeable. And speaking of the safeties, Jalen McCullough was out there pretty much the entire game. We saw some movement. Andre Turrentine, Will Brooks played before Jordan Thomas and Christian Charles. I wouldn't read too far into that, but that was cool to see in week 1. And a healthy rotation at corner.
Yeah, I love the rotation at corner. I still don't like the rotation at safety. And I thought Jalen played fine. But I still think you've got to rotate more guys in there. Like Jalen McCullough, for all the gnashing of teeth that people that want him out of there, that's not the direction they're going to go. But my thing is if that's your guy, right, then get him some help where he's not gassed in the fourth. There's no reason, and he didn't play that much of the fourth in there today. But how much of the last 3 years have we seen the defense played 93 snaps and Jalen McCullough played 92 of them, or 93 of them, or 90 of them? He needs to. If there's 93 defensive snaps, he needs to play 75 or 80. He's got to have a little bit of a break. That way, he's fresher in the fourth quarter. So. I think maybe, as they get a few guys back that, I think have been a little dinged up or whatever.
I think Jordan Thomas and Christian Charles need to practice.
Jordan Thomas did get in there in the fourth quarter, though.
Yeah, he did. But meaning he's missed a lot of contact in fall camp.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Olsen said that the left guard, position is the one that you still want to learn about on the offense. For me, it's safety on defense. I mean, the front seven was lights out today. And listen, they didn't play bad on the back end today, but there's still just questions there. When are we going to see more of Jordan Thomas, Christian Charles? Like you said, Eric, they need to practice. They've missed contact, but, ultimately at the end of the day, that's going to be the position that, I think Tennessee has to take the next step with defensively. The cornerback rotation was really good today, I thought. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys got work there.
And made some plays. Warren Burrell made some plays.
Yeah,
Kamal Hadden made some plays.
Yeah, Warren Burrell, Kamal Hadden made some plays.
Yeah.
I just think at safety, you do have to get Jalen McCullough some help. He's going to get a lot of run. Mm-hmm. You're going to expect it, but it can't be 95% of the snaps, especially this time of year.
All right, last thing, and then we'll call quits here. We'll have plenty more on the Rocket Top Rewind tomorrow night. Of course, all the 17 different podcasts we do throughout the week. I love game weeks. It's so much fun. One thing that's got to get better, and again, it's week one. We said this going in. I think Brent wrote about it. We talked about it on one of the podcasts. It was going to be sloppy in some areas. That's the nature of football. It's week one. But, oh, my God, special teams cannot be that bad again. And I think a lot of that was scheme, trying some things. Austin, you and I talked about it.
I didn't want to waste one of the questions in the postgame asking Heupel about specifically on the kickoffs. I'm intrigued. I would be shocked if they weren't, those two that they kicked out of bounds weren't called. Hey, pooch it high. Let's see if we can land at the 4, corner them, and make them return it, and see if we can pin them in there instead of just booting it through the end zone and saying start from the 25. Like they're getting. I would say this is, especially in a game like this, I think you're trying some things.
I agree.
So I would be shocked if he said, "Well, no, we told him to boot it out of the end zone, and he just hooked it." I mean, like I think that was called. So
I completely agree with
I think
that.
Tuberville is if you take the two that went out of bounds away, I thought Tuberville was really good. Booting it through the end zone multiple times, and that's a good thing to see.
I agree with that. And again, Josh Heupel kind of mentioned it in terms of where I'm going next. First game, new country and all that. He was here last year, but he didn't play. I've been high on him. You've been high on him. I think Jackson Ross is going to be just fine, but he has 2 really bad punts that go out of bounds. The netted like 17 yards on the punt, really bad.
And then he kicked one in the fourth quarter with about 5 minutes to go, where he basically hung it right down the sideline and it landed.
Yeah,
it made the guy catch it right basically as he was stepping out of bounds. So that was a great kick. Mm-hmm. He kicked one with his left foot, which is what I've been talking about. Like everybody says, Ulsters were talking about. I've been talking about the fact that this dude can kick with either foot, not that he's the second coming of Ray Guy. I'm talking about the fact that if you're ambidextrous enough to kick with both legs and do it at a high level, that's pretty impressive.
And rugby style and normal American style. I mean, that's why I've been high on him. I mean, again, he's not Ray Guy, but you can do your versatility as being a punter.
But your point, and I think everybody's point will be, this rattled him. 2 weeks from now, you're going to the swamp. Mm-hmm. You can't give them short fields
because the
defense, even if it's better, can't hold up from the 40-yard line and in. That too many times tonight or today, the defense was kind of put in a tough spot. They were fine today.
Yeah. D. Williams, horrible turnover. But my God, he's electric back there. He nearly had a house call, 55-yard punt return at one point in time, set up a short field for Nico. He was electrifying, but again, one mistake that you can't afford to have against Florida.
Yeah, and a little bit of an up and down, game for D. Williams there, but had the electrifying moment, had the fumble, had one that he should have caught that he didn't.
Yeah.
Had one that drove him back further than he wanted.
I thought he caught one, did a good job one point in time
with
people in his face and everything. Not much he could do.
Yeah, but absolutely. He's electric, and you can see that's going to be a point of emphasis for Tennessee. They're going to be able to flip the field some this fall, and they're going to try to set up as many returns as they can for him because it's one cut and go, and when he hits that second level, he's got a chance to take it the distance. But he can be an X factor for Tennessee this fall. You can't fumble the football, though, trying to do too much.
Yeah. End of the day, this is exactly what Tennessee needed. It was a 49-13 win. You beat the crap out of an inferior opponent. I had somebody tweet me during the game saying, man, if we were playing anybody, worth a damn, Tennessee be getting their brains beat in. I don't agree with that. I mean,
that's just ignorance.
Yeah, you want to clean some things up. I 100% agree. It was far from perfect.
The same person said the same thing when they played Pittsburgh last year and they barely won. and then that team 2 weeks later won at LSU, or beat Florida, beat LSU, beat Alabama.
Yeah.
Again, it's one game.
It's
Early in the
week
year,
one.
they won 49-13 against
Yes.
the Power 5 opponent.
And for as confusing, and
Look at Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly. And for as confusing and maybe as frustrating as maybe the first half offensively was, look at how they finished and closed the first half. So
You go in 21-3, and you
Yeah.
feel like you've just left another 21 points on the field.
and moved it in a
Yeah.
hurry. It's like, where's that been all the time? So again, you go back, you watch the film, you go out and correct some things. It's week one, but Tennessee wins 49-13. Can't ask for much more. You beat the crap out of a Power 5 opponent to kick off the season in a neutral site game, which was pretty much a home game. We've got so much to get into. Grant's probably written 17 articles by now. We'll have tons of coverage from Heupel, from players, 10 things, I think, all that types of stuff, Rocky Top Rewind. So stay out into Volquest.com. And if you haven't already, this sale is going to end tomorrow at some point. Kickoff sale, $1 for 1 month, or 50% off your first year of an annual subscription. I think that's about $49.99. So take advantage of that. Football is back.
That makes it 17 cents a day. If you can't get 17 cents a day of enjoyment out of Volquest, then I don't know what. Just go and steal it off Twitter like everybody else.
For Matt Ray, Austin Price, I am Eric Kane. Tennessee a big winner, 49-13 over Virginia.